on a monthly basis. I think for those of you who have kept score, you'd realize that we have missed a day or two, but certainly we're here, and I'm delighted to have all of you here. I want to welcome the members of the government, of course, members of the cabinet who could be with us. Some could not be here, the members of the media, and certainly the permanent secretaries who are also here. Thank you very much for attending. I start, as I usually do, by congratulating Montpelier Plantation, Beach, Nezle Plantation, and the Four Seasons. They were all named as part of Condé Nast Best Resorts in the Caribbean, the Reader's Choice Awards 2018. I want to congratulate them, their management and staff for their continued excellence. The Customs Department celebrated its 60th anniversary with a church service and luncheon, which was held in the grounds of the Government House. As part of those celebrations, they also had the renaming of the Customs Courier Facility in Charlestown to the Brian A. David Customs Courier Facility, and that was done on the 25th of October. Brian David, as we all know, was a beloved former senior customs officer who worked for 32 years as a public servant, and I think that it was an accolade that was well deserved, and I want to commend his family and thank the Customs Department for coming up with such a worthy initiative to honor Mr. David, notwithstanding it was done posthumously. I think that it is indeed right and proper that we honor those amongst us who have done well, and he did well, and so I say congratulations to his family. The Joyce and Liebert Primary School, formerly known as the Gingerland Primary School, and the St. James Primary School are both celebrating their 40th anniversary this year. The Joyce and Liebert Primary School was opened on the 9th of October 1978, and the St. James Primary was the 29th of November 1978. 40 years. I would want to congratulate both. I'm pretty sure that some who are in this very room would have benefited from both of those schools, and so I want to congratulate both the Joyce and Liebert Primary and the St. James Primary for this significant milestone. On Thursday, 15th October, we attended the 15th November, forgive me, we attended the 25 Most Remarkable Teams ceremony at the Parliamentary Lounge at the Government Headquarters, St. Kitts. The 5 remarkable teens from Nevis were Dylan Smitten, and he won in the category Personal Decision to Change. We had a Kenesha Liebert, Miss Kenesha Liebert, Spiritual Commitment. Carlin Bowen Tuckett, Sports, specifically Cricket. Jelani Manners, School Pride. And Lauren Lawrence, Youth Activism. I would want to use this rostrum to congratulate these 5 youngsters and to say that they are merely an indication of the many youth in our island who are doing great things, and so I congratulate them. We had a very significant ceremony on the 4th of October where under the leadership of Minister Evelyn, we had the bead wells being handed over, and I know much has been said. Minister Brandt, forgive me. Minister Brandt. I realize that much has been said about this already, but I wanted to just punctuate how significant this is for the island of Nevis, and to publicly congratulate Mr. Brand and his team. The bead wells, as we know, the administration previously led had entered into an agreement with Bead to supply water at a rate initially of $2.50 US per 1,000 imperial gallons, and then later at a rate of US $1.85 per 1,000 imperial gallons after the government of the day had assumed responsibility for the cost of electricity. We have paid those amounts and have had that agreement for the past decade. And so it was for us a very momentous occasion when in a very real sense the people of Nevis took back ownership of their water. And so those wells were handed over. I want to applaud Minister Brand and his team for being there at such an historic point in our island's development, that the water supply, we can now truly say as Nevisians, is in the hands of the government and people of Nevis. I want to commend the Deputy Premier Alexis Jeffers, because we have recently had the commissioning of the new wing at the abattoir, and that is quite significant. The abattoir, as we know, has played and continues to play a very significant role on the island in terms of food security, in terms of food production. And for any of you who have not yet tried the products being produced at the abattoir, I would encourage you to do so. They are producing top quality, organic products that are fresh, products that are locally grown, products that are good for you. And as someone said to me the other day, that we ought not to continue to eat and import so much food because we don't know where it comes from. At the abattoir, we can be certain where that food is from, and we can be certain as to the quality of that food. We want to commend our legal advisor, Madam Helen Lewis. She has been very instrumental in our continued thrust, good governance agenda, where we have, of course, introduced and sought to operationalize integrity in public life legislation. And as part of that process, we had a meeting, familiarization and sensitization process of all civil servants and cabinet members on the integrity in public life ordinance. Civil servants, they were able to meet with the legal advisor and her team on the 11th of October at the Anglican Church Hall. And cabinet members, we had our own tutorial, and we were able to meet with the legal advisor and her team in the cabinet room on Wednesday, the 17th of October. That, ladies and gentlemen, is significant. I recognize that there's been some doubting Thomases in the general public who have said that our thrust in relation to integrity and public life, and good governance and greater transparency, that somehow it is not real. It's a fig leaf. I believe that each month that I come here, and each time that I have an opportunity to report, I will report on the progress that we're making in that regard. And I want to thank the legal advisor again for leading the way and educating all of us as to what is required of us and what will be required of us going forward. On the 11th of October, we had a donation of books and tablets that was made to the primary schools on the island by Mrs. Donna Bach and her organization, Read, Lead, Learn. I want to publicly thank Ms. Tamika Lawrence, whose friendship with the donors made this donation possible. We had a visit of an investment team from Taiwan on the 30th of October, and they were hosted by the acting Premier, Spencer Brandt. The team of potential investment with government officials met with government officials from different ministries and departments, the Chamber of Commerce. They also visited the hot springs, the agro-processing plant, the New River Farm, and the wind farm. We had a very nice farewell for Her Ladyship Pauletta Lands on the 2nd of November. I really am sorry I couldn't be there for that, but I'm told the event was a tremendous success, and that was done at the grounds of the Government House. And we want to congratulate Miss Lands for her service. We want to thank her for her service. She, many people would not recognize, but quietly made history, because she was the first female judge from St. Kitts and Nevis, and indeed the first female judge naturally from the island of Nevis. If I can take a moment to say, not just from Nevis, but from Scarborough in Hanley's Road. And I feel very proud because I grew up just a stone's throw away from her in my earliest days. And so Miss Lands, if she's here, and Justice Lands, we want to wish you a very happy retirement, and thank you from the bottom of our hearts for your service over all these years. I want to segue, ladies and gentlemen, into a quick word about universal health care. The Universal Healthcare National Commission will host a series of town hall meetings over the next few weeks to educate persons and receive feedback on the green paper. And I'm not sure why the paper is green, but it is green. So I just want to say to you that a green paper has been created on universal health care, and encourage all the members of the press to get a copy of this. It is an important document. Matter of fact, I had a discussion with Minister Eugene Hamilton just yesterday, and I indicated to Minister Hamilton that perhaps not since adult suffrage, or perhaps not since the acquisition of the sugar lands, has there been such a significant development, such a transformative development for the people of St. Kitts and Nevis as universal health care. I believe all of us are aware of the damage that ill health can cause. It is said that if there's one thing that is certain, is that all of us will get sick. So it is certainly a destination that we all at some point will arrive at. And we know that sickness, when it comes, can be very expensive to correct. Some people incur costs every day just to maintain their health and to stay alive. We have a very deep burden with NCDs, non-communicable diseases, particularly diabetes, hypertension. We have people who have lost limbs. We have people who are suffering from kidney failure. We have all of those things that are happening. And we are well accustomed. As a government here in the NIA, we have tried our best to assist people when they are without other means of assistance. We have sought to say to our people, particularly our young people, that they ought to get some insurance, health insurance, so that when that inevitable bout of sickness comes, they have some protection. Of course, not everybody has done that. And so we have a pool of people in our country who are without the protection of insurance for purposes of their health, for themselves and their families. And so the federal government has taken this initiative. It has been talked about for a very long time. I'm very happy that we are at a point now where we are moving forward to a considerable degree to take us to universal health insurance. I want to commend my colleague, minister at the federal level, Eugene Hamilton. He doesn't talk a lot, but he has really done a phenomenal job in putting this universal health care system together. And he has been assisted by a team, which has been a federal team, comprised of individuals both in St. Kitts and in Nevis. Well, as part of that process, they are now coming together and they are seeking the input from the general public. And so they are having a series of town hall meetings in St. Kitts and in Nevis. The first town hall meeting is actually this evening in Bath Village. And we are asking, of course, everyone to go out. It starts at 7 p.m. It goes until 9 p.m. On Thursday, the 22nd of November, we have the second in Nevis at the St. Paul's Anglican Church, similarly at 7 p.m. Monday, the 26th of November, we have the Franklin Brown Community Center, again at 7 p.m. Thursday, the 27th of November, the Handley's Road Community Center, again at 7 p.m. And then the final session will be on Tuesday, the 4th of December, at the Jessop's Community Center. Now, I know that members of the public will say, well, what happened to my village? What happened to Fountain? What happened to Rollins? What happened to Zion? What happened to Brownhill? I want you to understand that we are doing one in each parish. And so we're going to have 5 consultations, one in each parish, and I certainly encourage the members of the public, please, this is your health. This is an initiative to better secure your health care. This is an initiative to ensure that when you get sick or your family members get sick, you don't have to be around town with one of those cards. You all know those cards asking people for donations? This is to put us on a proper footing and move us forward. It is a monumental and transformational effort, and I ask you please to go out and ensure that you are a part of it. I think since we were last here, we saw the opposition party, the Nevis Reformation Party. They held a convention, and I'm told from that convention, new leadership emerged in the person of Hansville Hector. I want to take this opportunity to congratulate Mr. Hector. I've done so prior via social media, but certainly I want to use this opportunity to congratulate him and wish him all the very best in his leadership of the Nevis Reformation Party. Democracy requires opposition, and there's no difficulty with that. We recognize that, and I will ensure that we continue to be here in government so we can continue to talk to him in opposition and ensure that he, whatever ideas he has in opposition, he can continue to bring them to the fore. So we congratulate him and wish him all the very best. We have a couple of projects that are happening. I have had a very comprehensive report from the Ministry of Public Works. I will want you just to take a moment, because the Ministry of Public Works, more than any other ministry, as we know, impacts directly the day-to-day economy of the island. The Honorable Minister Spencer Brand and myself would have been part of a town hall meeting at the Alberta Payne Community Center in Bath Village, where we discussed the Bath Village Road Rehabilitation Project Phase 1. The preliminary works, they have already started. They started on 15th October, but the major work started after the town hall meeting on the 22nd of October. The first phase of 1,650 feet will cost about $450,000. Is expected to be completed by the end of 2018. Minister Brand, Christmas is coming. The people of Bath want their road finished. So we hope by the end of 2018, the first phase, and just so people are wondering, the first phase will take us from Carl gas station, Reliable Motors, all the way past Blackhat. I think those are two famous landmarks in Bath. So we're going the low way, as they call it, for the first phase. The town hall meeting for the commencement of the road rehabilitation project for Craddock Road was held on the 13th of November at the St. Paul's Anglican Church. The road works in the form of changing all the small pipelines started the next day on the 14th of November. The project will include some major drainage works and estimated at EC $4.8 million, including cost for laying pipes at an estimated length of 1.8 kilometers. We note that 12,000 feet of off-site concrete drainage is included in that cost also. I just wanted to pause for a moment because Craddock Road has been one of those communities that, as we know, nothing has happened there in terms of their infrastructure for decades. And I want to commend Minister Brand. He has been pushing hard, and Craddock Road and the people of Craddock Road have already started to get some relief. We are asking, of course, the good people to be patient with us. We continue to say to them that there will be some disruption, naturally, whenever there's construction, but that we will seek to keep that disruption to a minimum, and that whenever anybody has any doubts as to the quality, I ask them to walk Hanley's Road, walk Braziers, take a walk on the bits of Brownhill that have been finished, go up Shaw's Road, and you see the quality of road that is being constructed by our Public Works Department. The people of Craddock Road, their time has come, and I'm grateful that we have been able to deliver for them. And so this is a project that we are rolling out and clearly will continue into next year. I also want to commend Minister Brand and his team because Ivor Walters Primary School has been bursting at the seams. What happened there, we all know, is that Cherry Gardens was built, a beautiful development. But the builders, the developers, those who came up with the idea for Cherry Gardens somehow didn't anticipate that if you were to put a few hundred more homes and residents into the area, that they will need the support services such as schools, healthcare, and the like. And so no provision was ever made for the schools. But of course, based on the zoning arrangement, all the children from Cherry Gardens are zoned to go to the Ivor Walters Primary School. And the consequence of that is that that school, my alma mater, that I'm very proud of, has been bursting at the seams. And so we have sought to bring some relief. We didn't have the resources immediately available to bring that relief in a permanent way. And we want to commit to the people of that community that Ivor Walters is very firmly on our radar to do something more permanent. But what we were able to do was to bring some interim relief by way of some temporary classrooms. And I'm told that the substantial completion of the Ivor Walters Primary School temporary classrooms, that construction of 3 classrooms with bathroom facilities, that is essentially complete. I imagine the keys are to be handed over very shortly, and certainly by January morning, the students as they come, the principal as she comes, will have a bit more space within which to work. And so we say to God be the glory for that, and thank you, Minister Brand, for your leadership, and of course, Minister Liebert, our Junior Minister of Education, because we've had some good collaboration to make this possible. In the context of the Water Department, I know Nivision say we're digging up the hole in Nevis. I want to apologize again for the inconvenience to motorists and others, but it is digging up to build back. It is digging up for a purpose. And what we're doing is we have continued the laying of pipes and the replacing of old pipes. You know, I spoke to a gentleman in Brownhill the other day, and he said when he saw the condition of the metal pipes, the iron pipes that had been removed from the ground in Brownhill, he couldn't believe that that is what water was coming through all these 40, 50 years. And so we're trying to modernize by removing all those metal pipes. I don't even know, for example, if that was good for us, because at the time when those pipes would have been installed, it was so long ago. So we're taking those, we're using modern technology. And so the water department has really been digging up all of Nevis. Highways and the byways, the villages and the mountains, from valley to mountain top, they've been digging up. And what they're doing is laying pipes. And I'm pleased to announce that they've completed the laying of 3,000 feet of 6-inch HDP pipes from Butlers to Maddens. That started on the 8th of October and it was completed on the 6th of November. They laid 4,000 feet of 6-inch HDP from middle of Westbury to the Island Main Road at the junction to enter the village. That too started on the 8th of October and ended on the 9th of November. They started the laying of 4,500 feet of 6-inch pipes from Camps to Shaw's Road to replace cast iron pipes. And that started on the 7th of November. And so that is a project that continues. All the projects that we're doing in Brownhill, in Bath, and all of those are also getting new water distribution means. And so the idea is that by the time we're finished, we'll have brand new infrastructure, not only in some places, but for the entire island of Nevis. The Physical Planning and Environment, the Nevis Physical Planning and Development Control Ordinance, that was legislation that has been proposed. In fact, we were supposed to have it dealt with on the last occasion that we went into the House. But because of some comments that had been received and because of the consultative approach that this government has taken, we opted not to proceed, but rather to take those comments on board. And so we hope to bring that legislation back at a later stage once we're in a position to take those comments on board and see how we can facilitate those particular comments. In tourism, I wanted to draw attention to a few developments and to thank Mr. John Hanley, our acting permanent secretary, for his continued leadership. There has been a facelift at Eden Brown. I would invite all of you to visit Eden Brown. If you don't know where Eden Brown is, all I can tell is close to Esme's shop. Esme is quite famous, so if you don't know where Eden Brown is, but you know where Esme is, I suggest you go there and have a look. That historical site was given a much needed facelift to make the entrance more inviting and appealing to all. Stone walls have been built at the front and the entrance to the ruins have been beautified with palms. The Ministry of Tourism has been very engaged with discussion with the Ministry of Agriculture to introduce an agro-tourism project on the site appropriately named the Garden of Eden. I hope none of what happened in the Garden of Eden happens over there. But the Garden of Eden is what we're looking to do. The fencing of the property and further upgrades will follow shortly as the ministry works in collaboration with the Butlers Community Improvement Club and restores and seeks to restore that very important heritage asset. The outlook for the 2018-2019 tourism season. Stakeholders have indicated to us that they're cautiously optimistic for the season, with a strong showing for festive. Festive, of course, is the period December, mid-December, thereabouts into the new year. Advanced room bookings in 2019 have been encouraging, especially for villas. The response to the introduction of Sun Country Airlines out of Minnesota is also quite encouraging. An additional flight by Sun Country out of Dallas, Texas is being envisaged for the summer of 2019. Now let me just take a moment, members of the press, to update you. Sun Country was an initiative of the Nevis Island Administration and the Nevis Tourism Authority. I want to commend Mr. Greg Phillip and Mr. Tim Thule of the Nevis Tourism Authority because they're the ones working with a chap called Nicholas Wangler, who works for the NIA in airline advice and airline promotions. He's our analyst, and they worked, I'm told, for nearly 3 years to persuade Sun Country that St. Kitts Nevis was a destination for them. Now you may well ask, why is Nevis involved? Because Sun Country cannot land in Nevis. Well, our view is based on all the analyses that we've done, that a significant number of our passengers are flying into and out of the RLB. I would love for them to fly into and out of Vance Amry, but we don't yet have the infrastructure to allow that. And so the big jets can't land at Vance Amry. They're landing at RLB, and so it is for us to seek to ensure that the hoteliers and the tourism sector in Nevis benefits from what is. And what is that the significant infrastructure that is required exists in St. Kitts. And so we approached Sun Country, and for the very first time in our history, the NTA is partnering with the St. Kitts Tourism Authority to bring Sun Country to the country. The Sun Country is coming to our country. And Sun Country is flying a direct flight from Minneapolis, Minnesota, to RLB, starting in December. I think the inaugural flight is the 22nd of December. I am delighted to announce that based on all that we have seen thus far, the flight is doing extremely well. They have already sold some 1,634 seats for the segment, and they're only going to run over the winter season. They've already sold some 1,634 seats, and I'm told that the inaugural flight from Minnesota to RLB only has 8 seats left. So if you know people who are there, you can find 8 people, then we could get a full flight coming for that inaugural flight into St. Kitts. Now, the numbers as thus far we don't have, because it appears that most people are just booking the flight and taking care of their hotel separately. We have only had, I'm told, 18 that have booked both hotel and flight using Sun Country tours. And from those 18, 10 have booked for St. Kitts, hotels in St. Kitts, and 8 have booked for hotels in Nevis. But clearly that's a drop in the bucket, so we can't really extrapolate that outwards. It's too small a number. But I can say 1,634. Now what is relevant about that? Minnesota is not a jurisdiction that we normally get guests from. I think the numbers before were less than 100 that we were getting each year from Minnesota. But we also know it's a very cold place. I'm told that they can expect temperatures there of minus 32 degrees in the dead of winter. And so we feel that we can provide a natural fit for them. And that direct flight from Minnesota to St. Kitts is really opening up the Midwest in a way that did not hitherto exist. So we think it's a good move, and the NIA has partnered through the Nevis Tourism Authority with the St. Kitts Tourism Authority to make this flight possible. And I think that it's a good cooperation for us, and I believe that the jurisdiction should benefit. Now what is good about this is that Nevis has, through the efforts of the NTA, been getting an incremental increase of tourists coming out of Texas. And you may ask what the two things have to do with one another. Well, I'll explain. What is happening is Sun Country is saying to us that they are prepared to launch a service direct from Dallas, Texas to St. Kitts, RLB, starting next year. And if we can do that, it now means that we open up that whole Texas market as well for us, so that people are no longer having to transit to go to Miami or to go to someplace else, but can now go direct. And it seems, based on the analyses that we are seeing, that travelers prefer now to go direct. And as a consequence, we are saying that we are going to tap into that. Now that is not to mean that, of course, we are abandoning the Van Samuel International Airport. We continue to work with Tradewind going to Puerto Rico. We continue to work with Seabourn going to Puerto Rico. And we continue to encourage Nevisians to use that service and for visitors to use that service, simply because that service through Puerto Rico connects you to over 22 cities in the United States. A lot of people say, oh, I don't like the island hopping, I prefer to just do a direct flight. But in reality, many people who take a boat to St. Kitts, so you've island hopped already, you take a taxi to the airport in St. Kitts, you then take a flight from St. Kitts to Miami, because most flights are going to Miami. If your final destination is Orlando, or your final destination is New York or New Jersey, you have already stopped in Miami, you spend a couple hours there. Well, first of all, you spend about 2 hours just to get your immigration and customs. You then have to check your bags back in and go through security again. And then you sit and wait 2-3 hours there, and then you eventually head to New York, or you head to New Jersey or Orlando, wherever it is you're going. Now, you can take a flight from Nevis, 45 minutes, 50 minutes to Puerto Rico, and from Puerto Rico, you're already into the United States. You don't have to check again. You clear immigration. I love Puerto Rico. I go there because when I go there, the number of passengers are a lot less than you encounter in Miami. And so in 10 minutes, I'm through, and I have a choice now of various carriers: Spirit, United, Delta, American, all of which are going to different cities in the United States. So if I want to go to Orlando, for example, I don't have to go to Miami and then hop again to Orlando. I go to Puerto Rico direct to Orlando. I go to Puerto Rico direct to New Jersey. Puerto Rico direct to some places in the Midwest and destinations such as those. New York, same thing. So I'm saying that the service is there. There used to be a time when American Eagle would come, and American Eagle would come to Nevis twice a day full, until people started to say, oh, I prefer to travel on the larger plane. And while I understand that, I'm not thinking that our people are either saving time nor money in doing so. Because if you pick up a special, and a family member of mine picked up a special out of San Juan the other day, and I think they paid $99 to go to Miami. So that exists, and I continue to encourage people to use our airport as well, because the service is there and it exists. I think the two things complement each other, and we need to work together to make sure that we get the maximum benefit from it. So we're looking cautiously optimistic in terms of cruise, and the numbers that I have from our Nevis Tourism Authority is that the cruise numbers have fallen this year, but that's expected, because we understood that last year we got a windfall based on the fact that hurricanes Irma and Maria had damaged some of our competitors. And so last year we saw the cruise calls jump to 100 cruise calls last year. That is what was expected. Just to give you some perspective, in 2015 we had 51 scheduled calls. And I say scheduled because it can go up or down sometimes depending on weather. Sometimes there are unscheduled calls and sometimes there are unscheduled cancellations. So I'm just dealing with the calls that are scheduled, meaning that at the start of each season, the agents send us a schedule. So these are the ships, this is when they're going to come. So 2015, we had 51 calls, scheduled calls. 2016, we had 48 scheduled calls. 2017, we had 100 scheduled calls. And for 2018, we will have 62 scheduled calls. I think that the numbers are important, because that way the press has an appreciation of what it is we can expect, and stakeholders have an appreciation of what it is we can expect. So barring the spike of 2017, which was caused naturally by the hurricanes affecting others, we are really consistent in terms of the number of calls. 2015, 51, 2016, that fell slightly to 48, and 2018, it has rebounded to 62. 2017 was 100, significant. I wish we could maintain it at that level, but we recognize why that happened, and so I would want to just share those statistics with you, the members of the public. As I seek to wrap up this portion of the press conference, I wish to take a moment to extend condolences to the family of Mr. Samuel Powell. Sam Powell, as we all knew him, was a former director of agriculture. He was a former director of cooperatives, and he gave more than 30 years of service to the public sector, because even after his retirement, he maintained a relationship with agriculture and attended most functions. He also, I'm told, is an invigilator for CXC, and he was an active member in the Methodist Church, one of the leading musicians on the island. He had been recognized nationally prior to his death, but I think his death was sudden to most of us. And I was away when it happened, and I did send my own condolences, but I certainly want from this podium to extend deep condolences to the family of Mr. Powell and the families of all of those who have lost loved ones. I want to send condolences to them as well. And so Mr. Powell, he may be gone, but he will long be remembered for the service that he has given to the island of Nevis. Ladies and gentlemen, allow me a few further moments before I open the floor for questions, because there is a significant development that I would wish to advise of, and that is that the federal government and the Federal Ministry of Education, they have determined the state scholar, and the state scholar this year is young Cale Thomas from the Clarence Fitzroy Bryant College. And I want to extend the congratulations to Cale. Looking at the printout that I've got from CAPE, from CXC, the Caribbean Examinations Council, for this CAPE scholarship, I'm told that they're the ones. So lest there be too much debate, that I'm now being told that CAPE CXC are the ones who will send the results in terms of tabulation and who the winners are, who the top students are. Some of it, I confess, doesn't make sense to me, but I'm not an expert. Young Cale Thomas has been announced as the state scholar. He had 8 1s and 3 2s, and he has been announced to be this year's state scholar. We congratulate young Mr. Thomas. In second place, runner-up state scholar, we have Mr. Roger Williams, and Mr. Roger Williams had 8 1s and 10 2s, and he is second in the running for state scholar. And the third is another division, I'm very proud, Miss Ronica Liebert, and she got 7 grade 1s and 2 grade 2s. So she is second run-up or third in the running. Fourth is young Kisani Harvey from the Clarence Fitzroy Bryan College. He got 6 grade 1s and 2 grade 2s. And fifth is young Keandre Weeks from the Clarence Fitzroy Bryan College, who got 5 grade 1s and 3 grade 2s. I want to commend all the students, but a special commendation to young Roger and Miss Ronica. Let me get her name right. Ronica Liebert. Ronicia, I'm sorry, forgive me. Ronicia Liebert, who would have placed third. And so of the top 5 students in the Federation, Nevis had 2, and they would have placed second and third, respectively. And I would want to extend my congratulations to them. I'm advised that Mr. Roger Williams, who is a household name now because of his phenomenal achievements, that he's already ensconced in university abroad. And I would want to wish him well and congratulate both him and Ronicia for their phenomenal achievement and phenomenal performance. Let me segue now into just a few other brief matters. I want to take a moment to commend Mr. Mark Theron and his company Rums of Nevis. And you may ask, why am I, the premier, up here talking about rum? Well, it's not so much the rum that excites me, but the fact that a small business in Nevis has developed to a point where Mr. Theron is now exporting rum to the United Kingdom. And I believe that's a good thing for an economy that is usually importing and import-oriented. It is a good thing to see that we have an export market that has developed. So I want to commend Mr. Theron. He has 2 brands that he has developed: Clifton's Estate, which I have tried and which I recommend that you try, and Mokojumbi, which is apparently more of a mixing, a rum for mixing. Clifton's Estate is a rum that you would have with a bit of ice maybe, or maybe even neat, with no chaser. But Mokojumbi is for rum punch and rum and coke and that kind of thing. But either way, I want to commend Mr. Mark Theron and his team, and to say that they are quietly putting Nevis on the map with this rum. I have another note here, because I ought to have said this at the start. The Freedom FM that normally carries this press conference, they're having some technical difficulties. They have called, however, to say that the press conference will be carried in its entirety on their issues edition today from 1:30, and so individuals can tune in for that. A word about employment. There's a lot of talk, we understand, about the economy, and I will forestall some of that talk by saying to you that we can always do better. However we're doing, we can always do better. But I think the numbers that I have here are interesting. I have a full report here, 56-page report from Social Security, setting out the numbers from January to June 2018 to 2018 versus 2017, a comparative analysis. And I read directly from the report. The data for our review period, January to June 2018, show that 217 persons registered with Social Security on Nevis. Among these registrants were 109, or 50.2% females, and 108, or 49.8% males. The monthly data during the review period also revealed that registration figures range from 30 in May to 53 in April, averaging 36 registrants per month. A look at the age distribution of the registrants revealed that 143, or 65.9%, fell into the age category of 16 to 29. 70, or 32.3%, fell in the category 30 to 62. And 0.9%, were under 16, and 0.9%, were over 62. The wholesale and retail trade sector saw 48, 22.1% of the new registrants that period, while the hotels and restaurants sector accounted for 45, or 20.7%, and the construction sector recorded 29, or 13.4% of the new registrants. Now this is important. I hope the press can take this soundbite. A brief comparison of the period January to June 2018 to the corresponding period in 2017 revealed that the number of employee registrants on NEVIS increased from 124 registrants in 2017 to 217 registrants in 2018. This represents a growth in employee registration of 93, or 75%. I think that is significant because, as I always say, we know that not everybody is captured by Social Security. We also know that there are people from St. Kitts who work in NEVIS who will be captured by Social Security in St. Kitts because they're registered over there and therefore will not register over here. So when we see numbers like this, we can deduce that the numbers are in fact higher in terms of employment than reflected here. But for NEVIS to record a 75% increase in new registrations, meaning new workers, new people coming onto the rolls of Social Security for the first 6 months of 2018 compared to 2017, I think that is significant for us as a small economy trying to create jobs and create employment. Those are people who are employed to others. Their position in relation to self-employment is also important because, as you know, we've been encouraging people to set up their own businesses and people to become self-employed. Let me go back at page 14. The data for our review period, January to June 2018, showed that 38 persons registered with Social Security on NEVIS. This is self-employed people now. Among those were 12, or 31.6% females, and 26, 68.4% males. The monthly data during the review period also revealed that the registration figures range from 2 in April to 12 in January, averaging 6 registrants per month. So on average for the 6-month period in 2018, every month you had 6 new people registering as self-employed individuals. A look at the age distribution of the registrants revealed that 4, 10.5%, fell in the 16 to 29 age range, 26, 68.4%, fell into the 30 to 49 age range, while 8, 21.1%, fell into the 50 to 61 age range. A brief comparison of the period January to June 2018 to the corresponding period in 2017 revealed that the number of self-employed registrants on NEVIS increased from 29 registrants in 2017 to 38 registrants in 2018. This represents a growth in self-employed registration of 31% for the island of Nevis. Ladies and gentlemen, I think we can all agree that if self-employment has grown by 31%, according to the official statistics at Social Security, and employee registration, new employee registration has grown by 75%, that we can say that something good is happening in employment in Nevis. We hope that the figures will hold for the balance of the year, and certainly we look forward to seeing those numbers for the end of the year. But certainly I think that those numbers are encouraging for the island of Nevis moving forward. I will end by indicating that I took recently a trip to Japan, an official visit to Japan, which was at the invitation of the government of Japan. That invitation was extended and accepted. Whilst in Japan, I was able to lead my delegation to Tokyo. From Tokyo, we also visited Hiroshima, where I was very humbled to lay a wreath at the memorial there for those who lost their lives in the, of course, bombing when a nuclear bomb was dropped on Hiroshima at the close of World War II. And I was able to lay a wreath there, a very solemn occasion. We were then, my delegation, we went from Hiroshima to Kyoto, from Kyoto to Osaka, and Osaka back to Tokyo. Osaka, the relevance of Osaka was because Japan is hosting, or wishes to host, forgive me, the Expo 2025. And of course is seeking support from various countries for that initiative. I think it was a good opportunity. Whilst there, we had a number of meetings. Some were open meetings, some were closed meetings, as is customary in these types of endeavors. And all that means is that closed meetings would be just with myself, the ambassador, and the high-level executives. Open meetings would mean that the entire delegation is part of that discussion. I was able to meet with Foreign Minister Kono of Japan. We had a very warm meeting, a working dinner, and I think that we discussed many things of mutual interest. I think the public would know that we have traditionally engaged with Japan within the context of the International Whaling Commission, the IWC, but we are seeking to broaden that engagement. Japan has been deeply involved in our country. They have built fisheries complexes and the like. They've assisted the fishing industry, particularly on St. Kitts, where they have fisheries complexes. Here in Nevis, they've assisted us up to last year with disaster preparedness. I think they would have renovated the Alberta Payne Community Center. They would have built retaining walls in the Fenton Hill, I think, area, where we had a dangerous situation there and threat of landslides. And they would have assisted us in that regard. And so I took greetings there. I then traveled from Japan to Singapore. And in Singapore, again at the invitation of persons there, I would have traveled there to engage in some discussions about investment into Nevis. I had some very good meetings in relation to potential investment in the hospitality sector and in the energy sector. Those are the two broad areas that were discussed. Whilst there, I also had an opportunity for an event with Prince Albert of Monaco and was able to interact with him. Turns out that he's very familiar with our island and our country and with the Caribbean. And so I used the opportunity to invite him to visit and seek to see how we can engage in a deeper way with Monaco. I end, therefore, by saying that the budget address this year will be on the 5th of December, and so our budget debates will start then, and we hope that members of the public will pay attention and come out and see what it is we're offering in terms of a budget to take us into the next year. With those words then, I would want to open the floor and invite your comments and questions, if any. And if you don't have any, we can just wrap up and proceed to end the conference. So I leave it now to members of the press.
Good morning, Dr. Premier,
Good morning.
government officials, government ministers, members of the media, and everyone in St. Kitts and Nevis. Pleasant good morning. And Mr. Premier, welcome back home.
Thank you very much.
And while you're at your trip in Japan, I understand you were involved in matters of shopping down there. And I thought we had an agreement that you were going to be my fashion advisor. So I was quite surprised to see you coming in here empty-handed. I thought you would at least bring back a nice tie or pair of shoes for me today. Yeah. But there's some hope on the horizon still, because I understand you'll be on your way to Dubai later this week. And I would like to know if you'll be taking a delegation as well. And if you could kindly name that delegation for us today. And let's get down to some serious matters now. Mr. Premier, you mentioned that the trip was sponsored by the Japanese government. So I want to know, did they pay for that trip to Japan and the delegation that was there? And also, who will the trip to Dubai be sponsored by? Will that be sponsored by the King over there in Dubai? And also, Mr. Premier, Uwali Pier. I understand that Uwali Pier will be in progress again in short order. However, there was no activity over there for many months. And the last time we had activity over there was just before the hurricane. And there were all kinds of reasons given, the hurricane stopped it and all of that. I understand it will be up and running in short order again. Can you find it in your heart, Mr. Premier, to give us a real reason why the contractors with all the equipment left Nevis with the pier over there at Uwali uncompleted? And I'll leave it there for now, Mr. Premier. I'll be back in short order.
Thank you very much, Mr. Hanley, and thank you for your regular attendance at these press conferences. I do appreciate it, and I do appreciate the questions. I recognize you made some mention about fashion. I wouldn't bother with those because I think you were trying to make a joke of it. So let me just deal with the more serious matters that you would have raised. Delegation to Dubai, yes. I would ordinarily make an announcement, but since you have prompted it with your question, and that I am part of a delegation to Dubai, to the United Arab Emirates. The United Arab Emirates has invited all of CARICOM to visit for a CARICOM UAE summit. They have invited ministers of finance, ministers of foreign affairs, and ministers of culture, and have allowed each of those ministers to have 2 persons accompany him or her. So when you do the math, you have an average of 9 persons who would be going from each of the CARICOM countries. Whilst there, we anticipate that we will be engaged in some high-level discussions. I've seen the itinerary, and we have a number of outstanding bilateral issues with the UAE that I would be pursuing, including the issue of visa waiver access, visa-free access to UAE, which, as you know, has been a signal part of my tenure as foreign minister. I have been able to enlarge in a very great degree the number of countries, the network of countries that we can travel to without a visa. So we anticipate going to Dubai. My delegation, let me back up, I don't want to perhaps put it that way. The delegation is led by the Honorable Sean Richards as the Deputy Prime Minister, and my 2+2 will be the Honorable Eric Evelyn, who as Minister of Culture in Nevis, will accompany me, and my Permanent Secretary in the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, Ms. K. Bass, will accompany me. Mr. Richards will have 2 accompanying him, and I believe the 3rd member, substitute for the Minister of Finance, will be Minister Lindsey Grant, and he will have 2 members accompanying him. So that is the intended trip to Dubai. You asked about funding. I want to make it very clear to the public that 90+% of the travel that I do is funded travel. In fact, 90+% of the travel that my ministers do is funded travel. And what I mean by that is that various organizations, governments, entities will from time to time invite us to come to them for whatever reason, for conference, for discussion, and they provide the funding for the trip. So that means they'll provide a ticket, they'll provide hotel accommodation, transportation, and the like. And so these trips come at no cost for travel or accommodation to the taxpayers of St. Kitts and Nevis, or the taxpayers of Nevis more specifically. So I want to make that very clear that the UAE government is funding not only for St. Kitts and Nevis, but for all the rest of CARICOM as well to attend this particular summit. Similarly with Japan, you asked who funded the delegation. The Japanese government would have funded the delegation. So again, it came at no cost to the taxpayers of St. Kitts and Nevis. The Uwali Pier, you've asked me for the real reason. I'm not so sure what that means. I believe we've given the reasons why we have some delays. I think Deputy Premier Jeffers has been very forthright, including making a statement at the last sitting of the Nevis Island Assembly, indicating what has happened and when the contractors are intended to be here and when we can expect the pier to be completed. So I want the public to be very clear that there has been no obfuscation, no effort to hide anything. Problems will develop from projects from time to time. We have delays from time. Just last night I called Minister Brand and I said to him what's happening on Brown Hill Road, because I want the road to be in a state of substantial completion for Christmas. And he explained to me that there had been a few hiccups because there are other agencies outside the control of government that have to do some work. So things happen. Projects, we had some hiccups at the hospital project. We're not trying to hide these things. These are major infrastructural projects, and from time to time, things will go wrong. There will be hiccups, and our job as a government is to be open and transparent with the public, to let you know what the position is, where we are, and certainly what we expect to do about it. And so the hospital project, for example, had some problems. It is now back on track. The pier had some hiccups initially with the EIA, as we came here and we said. That was resolved. The pier has started. It has progressed to a certain degree. But I think, as the Minister and Deputy Premier has also explained, that we have expanded the scope of the pier. The pier now is going to be much longer than we had initially anticipated. So we expected the contractors to be back. I think the Deputy Premier has been very clear, Mr. Hanley, about that. And certainly there is no real reason other than the real reasons that we've already given in relation to that particular project.
Mr. Premier, people of Nevis are quite concerned because you're taking all these trips. You were in Japan for 15 long days, and I'm still waiting to hear what did you accomplish at that trip. You were in the hills, the valleys, the city, laying wheat all over. What about investment, Mr. Premier? Can we expect anything in short order coming from Japan? And what can we expect coming from Dubai? You're going to be in Dubai. Can you tell us how long you're going to be in Dubai? And what do you hope to accomplish there?
Okay, Mr. Hanley,
because you're traveling every month.
Mr. Hanley,
every month you're traveling. Find it in your heart, Mr. Premier, to at least bring back a Japanese car or barrel of oil, anything.
Okay.
Bring back something for the people in Nevis.
Okay. Mr. Hanley,
they need support. They need your support.
Okay, Mr. Hanley, this is not
find it in your heart.
Mr. Hanley, this is not an occasion for a speech. It's a press conference, and if you have a question, then certainly bring the question.
My question is, what are you bringing back?
Okay.
You're coming back with words.
So let me try.
You need prosperity for all.
Okay, Mr. Hanley, please. As I said, this is not an occasion for a speech. If you have a question, then you ask your question and give me an opportunity to respond.
All right, Doctor.
Part of your question betrays a misunderstanding of what I do when I travel for purposes of foreign affairs. Foreign affairs is the process of engaging with foreign governments. It is not that I'm meeting with investors. It is that I'm meeting with foreign governments to advance the interests of St. Kitts and Nevis in the context of that bilateral relationship. That is what happens. I don't go to the UN looking for investment. I go to the UN to engage at the United Nations in the context of the foreign policy of St. Kitts and Nevis. You have to be very clear as to what these trips are about and what trip is meant for what. I did say that when I went to Singapore, I engaged with investors. That was a trip of a different nature. So when I go to Japan, for example, I would have met with government officials. I'd have met with individuals from the public sector, principally, because they're the ones who would have invited me to engage with me on issues impacting the relationship between St. Kitts and Nevis. So I think the purpose of a trip has to be understood, and the purpose of what we do as ministers has to be understood. And if that is understood, then I think that the questions will be far more understandable, because the questions will come from a place of understanding insofar as the role and function is concerned. So it sounds very good, and perhaps that's among the talking points about bringing back something and all of that, but what I bring back is good relations.
Appreciate
and good relations are very important in the context of foreign affairs. It is because of good relations that we've had 17 new countries decide to allow you and I to access their borders without a passport. Because of the development of good relations, without a visa, because of good relations, we've had some 30 countries say that we have confidence enough in you to have formal diplomatic relations with you. It is because of good relations that we are able to send our students to various parts of the world for training, for education. Even now we have a young lady who's in the Philippines, not Philippines, Indonesia, who is studying batik, and we hope to come back to start a batik industry. So we have to be very clear as to what we're talking about. And if we're clear as to what we're talking about, then I think the question and answer session goes much easier.
Mr. Premier, I thank you for that admission. You travel abroad not for investment. You travel to meet with government officials. Thank you so much for that admission. And also, Mr. Premier, a businessman heavily invested in the tourism industry in Nevis expressed some concerns that tourism on Nevis is 50% down, while tourism on St. Kitts is 26% up. Mr. Premier, you have a record 18 portfolios. And that's ministries. That's like having 18 small businesses, Mr. Premier. Don't you think that's a little bit too much work for you at this time, considering you're traveling all around and meeting with government officials? And also the businessman is asking you to, is calling, Mr. Premier, for you to hand over the Ministry of Tourism to one of your members of government so that we can have some meaningful activity here on the island of Nevis. I am suggesting that you hand over the Ministry of Tourism to the beautiful, the Honorable Hazel Brandy Williams. Okay. Women, we need to empower women in this country, Mr. Premier, and we will look forward to seeing you hand over
you have a question, Mr. Hanley? What's the question?
Of tourism in short order.
Okay.
And the question is, when are you going to hand it over?
Okay.
I hope you're going to hand it over in short order.
Okay.
Sir. And also, last question, ZIZ TV on the island of Nevis. I noticed the other day, and people have been saying, ZIZ is gone from the island of Nevis. There is no more ZIZ TV on the island of Nevis, and I understand that that came from the highest level of government. Government on Nevis asked for the removal of ZIZ. Too much work in St. Kitts. Can't afford for the people in Nevis to see all that work. So they would have asked for the removal of ZIZ on the island of Nevis, but NTV, Nevis television, is showing clear, bright and clear on the island of Nevis. But you turn to ZIZ on in Nevis, it's dark, black, nothing.
Okay.
So my question to you,
yes,
in the spirits of unity and better together, all of us together in love, when will ZIZ be restored to the island of Nevis so that we could be one federation, one heart, one love, one St. Kitts and Nevis, together in love and harmony? We need to see what is happening on our beautiful island of St. Kitts.
Mr. Hanley, I think we understand what you're saying.
Please find it in your heart to give us
can I have an opportunity to respond, Mr. Hanley?
Certainly, sir.
You have another speech.
Certainly, Doctor.
Do you have something else you wish to say?
Dr. Brantley, can you give us a time when ZIZ will be restored fully on the island of Nevis so that we could see the good work that is happening on St. Kitts? All the work, pier, roads, roof they're fixing down there, they're giving out money on the road, everything they said they're happening down there. We need to see.
Mr. Hanley, again, please. This is a press conference. I gather that you're now a politician. You have an opportunity, no doubt, to make political speeches.
I apologize. The heart.
So please,
the heart is overwhelmed
if you have a question, ask the question, and please respect the process.
I do apologize. I'm so sorry, Mr. Premier.
Do you have another question?
I do apologize.
Do you have another question?
The delegation will be leaving sometime this week.
Yes.
I want to know if I could be a part of that.
No, you cannot.
2 days. Give me 2 days in Dubai.
No, you
can't. And I will bring back at least a barrel of oil for the people in Nevis.
Thank you, Mr. Hanley.
So that gas can go down.
Can I now try to answer to some of the things? Mr. Hanley, this is not comedy hour. This is a very serious matter when we try to report to the people. I would ask that when you come to this press conference, you respect the process. I have no difficulty with you. I have repeatedly welcomed you to this press conference. But this is not a forum for grandstanding. This is a forum for sharing information, and I am sure that you have a lot of opportunities to share your political views, if you have any. This is not the forum for that. So I would appreciate if you have a question to ask. You ask the question, you're a member of the media, so you say, and I would want to treat you as a member of the media. You wouldn't want me to treat you as a politician, because the treatment would be different. So I am just saying that if we're here, let us engage each other in a respectful way. That is all I'm asking. I don't disrespect you. I think I did so on one occasion, and I came back and I apologized to you. And I don't intend to do that. So let us keep it in that vein. You've asked about people of Nevis are concerned about trips, you say, and I think you mentioned some businessman. I don't know what businessman you're talking about. But I was able to share with you the numbers. Because, again, as a member of the press, I expect that members of the press would be responsible. It may not be, the facts may not accord with the sentiment. The facts may not accord with the line that you want to pursue, if you're pursuing a particular line for whatever other reasons. But here we're trying to deal with facts and to disseminate information to the members of the public. You say that some businessman, unnamed, says that tourism is down 50%. I have just given you the official statistics for cruise from the Nevis Tourism Authority. Now, who should the people of Nevis believe? A businessman, unnamed, who you say that tourism is down 50%? Or the statistics? What are the statistics? 2015, 51 cruise calls to Nevis. 2016, 48 cruise calls to Nevis. 2017, 100 cruise calls to Nevis. 2018, 62 cruise calls to Nevis. Now we all know, Mr. Handley, that we had a spike in 2017 because of the damage to our neighbors. We don't need rocket science to explain that to us. You know that, I know that, and everybody knows that. So 2017 was an aberration in terms of numbers because we benefited, unfortunately, from the tragedy that unfolded in Anguilla, in St. Martin, as the case may be. So ships that would call there called here instead, and our numbers went up. Our numbers are now back to 62. So I think that you need to remove 2017 from the equation because we had unusual circumstances at work there. But when you look at 2015, a normal year, 2016, a normal year, 2018 so far, thank God, a normal year, you have 51 in 15, 48 in 16, 62 in 18. How could anybody in good conscience say that tourism is down 50%? It is simply false. And I think as a journalist, your job is to ferret out the accurate information and report on it. Now, if it is that the numbers were down and I were only expecting 10 or 15 cruise calls, then I could understand that there is an uproar and people say the numbers are down. But it is simply false. And it is not my job to go out to kick at every barking dog. I say it all the time. If everybody who makes noise you have to respond to, we'll never get anything done. And unfortunately, we have a forum and forums now, radio, social media, etc., where anybody with an opinion, and we all have opinions, and everybody's entitled to their own opinion. I'm not fighting with anybody on that. But anybody with an opinion spouts off, and then we come out to a press conference such as this, where we're dealing with serious matters, and we take those uninformed views and we posit them as if they are factual. They're not. They are false. And the numbers simply tell a completely different tale to those falsehoods. So that is our reality. And I think that, members of the press have a responsibility. You wouldn't like it if I sat up here and spouted falsehood and rumors and tell you I dreamed this last night and my neighbor tell me that she couldn't tell her something yesterday, and that becomes the basis for my engagement with you. No. You would want the Premier of Nevis to be responsible. And so the Premier of Nevis equally would want the members of the press and the members of the opposition to be responsible. This island is all of us. It belongs to all of us. And all of us want the best for it. But I don't think propaganda and falsehoods is the way to go. And that is why I choose not to respond when I see people spout off. Because if you are a businessman and you have a legitimate interest in the state of tourism, we have a Minister of Tourism, we have a Prominent Secretary in Tourism, we have a Nevis Tourism Authority. You must ask, has that businessman ever engaged with any of those. If you're serious, to me, that is how you do business. If TDC has a problem, TDC, the manager would call and say, we're having a problem with so-and-so. And we try to address that problem because TDC is a serious business. That is how I imagine you ought to function. But if you jump on the radio and start to rant and rave and say whatever, first I'm hearing is what you have come here with today, to say that some businessman. Well, the businessman doesn't know who I am. He doesn't know where my office is. He doesn't know who the permanent secretary is. He doesn't know how to find the NTA. Who's the businessman? These are some of the things that trouble me. Because we in the country seek to politicize things that need not be politicized. If somebody went down on Penny's Beach and had a party and left the beach in an untidy state, what is the value of taking photos of that and putting it on Facebook to seek to bash the minister? It wasn't me who left it so. Wouldn't it be better for you if you're genuinely interested to make a call and say, the beach was left in an untidy state, could you please come and have somebody clean it? That is a partnership, because at the end of the day, the beach in an untidy state affects all of us. So, what is the value of these pronouncements, which are based on, look to me like some people get up on the wrong side of the bed in the morning and just say, let me say this. And you are the journalist. So you should be the one to ferret out and say, no, that's nonsense. Right? Your first call should have been to the Ministry of Tourism or to the Nevis Tourism Authority as a responsible journalist and say, listen, some unnamed businessman is making some allegation. Can you give me some information, some statistics? And then you could write the story based on that. It is not your job to regurgitate what anybody says. Somebody says, see a Jumbie up the road, you run and write a headline, Jumbie seen up in Hamilton. No. Journalism is serious business. And we're better as a democracy when journalists do their job. We're better as a democracy, we're better as a country when you're serious about what you do. And so I encourage you to be serious, just as you want me to be serious. Ministries and handover of ministries, we take your suggestion and we'll see. At the appropriate time, we'll look at ministries and see what ministries need to be handed over, if any. But I'm satisfied that the ministries are functioning as they ought to, and that we are running a good ship and a tight ship, so I'm not too fussed about the numbers. ZIZ, I'm happy that you're telling me, because I wasn't aware that ZIZ is off the air in Nevis. So I'm happy that you've told me. I will now investigate to find out why. As you know, the television system is not controlled by the government. I think I heard you say something about they were given some directions from the highest levels. I have no idea what levels those are to which you speak. But I, as Premier of Nevis, was not aware that ZIZ was off the air, and I will have to speak to ZIZ to find out why, and of course to the good people at Digicel, because you know the television system in Nevis is a private company, Digicel, to find out why it is that ZIZ is not there. I recall that there was a time when ZIZ was not on air in Nevis, and that was due to some technical issues, and we had sought to resolve those. As to what's going on in St. Kitts, praise be to God. Unity government is doing a good job, and we are grateful for the good people of St. Kitts, and I hope that the good people of Nevis would also be happy for what is happening on the good island of Nevis. I think both islands are progressing, both islands are developing, and I am sure that you see on NTV what is going on in Nevis, and if ZIZ is off the air as you say, then I will have to have a word to find out why. But I'm not aware that ZIZ was off the air in Nevis. Are there any other questions? Any other members of the media?
Mr. Premier, good morning.
Good morning to you.
Good morning to everyone. Germany Abel from Win FM.
Win FM?
Yes.
Yes.
I have several questions. One, you talk about the sensitization drive, the education drive that was had with regards to the integrity in public life.
Yes.
Can you just give us what was the feedback like from those that would have been engaged with regards to the implementation, how it would be affecting them, and so forth? Secondly, the airport. What developmental plans is there with regards to that in light of most of the major flights going through RLB and visitors statistics, basically everyone is staying over on St. Kitts? What is the plan short-term, long-term in terms of development for that airport? On a national level, federally, we have not seen or their reports, and there was a comment based on the IMF report that wasn't signed off. St. Kitts and Nevis, you're part of the government, the entire government, whether it be you or those on St. Kitts, are being criticized for not signing off on that report. How do you address those concerns by the citizens with regards to quote-unquote cover-up and all these criticisms being leveled because that report has not been signed off on? And for now, finally, we have not had a comment with regards to the OECD blacklisting. We have had no formal comment. Could you care to address the issue that was raised with regards to St. Kitts and Nevis and the Golden Passport being blacklisted?
First of all, I'm not aware of any blacklisting. I am aware that the OECD and the EU have indicated that this is a matter that they are prepared to look at, meaning the issue of the Citizenship by Investment program. And it's not unique to St. Kitts and Nevis. They're looking at CBI programs globally to determine if those programs can be used to create any difficulties in terms of the tax and the tax administration infrastructure globally. So I would want to disabuse your mind and the mind of the public that there's any notion that anybody has been blacklisted. That is simply not accurate. In relation to the IMF report, you mentioned the word cover-up, and this is why, again, I'm urging journalists, please, that kind of language, unless you have evidence of a cover-up, is unfortunate, because somebody, for political reasons, says that we are covering up something. Doesn't mean that you as a journalist must come and perpetuate that language, because you have no evidence of any cover-up. As I understand the process, and it will be for the Prime Minister, as Minister of Finance, to answer. I know he has a press conference. I believe he would have had one just a few days ago. And I would have hoped that these questions would have put to him. It would have been put to him because it is for him to answer. My understanding of the process is that the IMF would have done the usual review, and that the report is a matter for the country to determine whether or not the final report is published or not. The last that I was advised is that the parties continue in discussion with the IMF on the content, final content of the report. And so I do not know that there's any cover-up or there's any issue. The country is exercising the right that every country has to engage with the IMF. And if there are things in the report which the country feels require further discussion, and they're within their rights to have those discussions. And that is, as far as I understand it, what is currently afoot. So that is a process that will take its course, and I'm sure the Prime Minister will be in a position to respond to that as we go. The airport for Vance Amory, I think the Cabinet has been seized with various matters in relation to the airport. I'm not at liberty now, today, to say very much, because I think those discussions are still ongoing and at a delicate stage. I certainly will come to the public at the appropriate time to say something about the outcome of those discussions. I agree with you that the airport is a matter of requiring urgent attention by this government, that we have a decision to make in Nevis, because the airport as it currently stands, because of the infrastructure that is there, cannot accept the long flights, the large jets. So the infrastructure limits us in terms of who we can attract. And again, as I started out by saying, that the smaller planes that do come there, our public, including the people right here in Nevis. When I sat on a plane from Miami the other day and I started counting, and I believe it was 22 people that I recognize that walked into that plane at Miami International who are going to Nevis. That doesn't include the tourists, whom I would not know where they're going. But people who I know live here in Nevis, 22 of them passed and went into the plane. So it means that if that traffic, we were capturing the traffic that is naturally Nevis's traffic, I think our airport will be buzzing. So it's not, and I don't want the public to feel that it's not that people are not traveling in and out of Nevis. People are coming, but it's just that they're choosing to travel through RLB. So that's a matter that we have to address, and certainly I take that on board, and the Cabinet is already seized with various discussions in relation to that. Feedback from the consultation, I think based on the report we had from our legal advisor, the consultation with civil servants went well. There was good feedback, good discussion. I didn't get a sense that there was any resistance because I think people understood the relevance and importance of integrity in public life. From the cabinet, well, certainly wouldn't have got any resistance from us because we're the ones championing it. But certainly I think we had some good discussions, and the intention going forward would be for us to see how we can graph those points coming out of those discussions and determine whether we need to make any amendments. I think I said from the outset that there had been some concerns that perhaps the net was overly broad in terms of who it applied to, and some people naturally would be in the net, such as the politicians, but some felt that, you know, to go down to heads of departments and the like might be overly broad. We will see, but those are matters that I am, and I believe the cabinet is seized of and comfortable with, that if it comes to that, we may make some changes. So that's where we are. I trust I've answered the questions that you had. Are there any more questions?
Good morning, Monique Washington, St. Kitts Nevis Observer newspaper.
Good morning.
Mr. Premier, divisions would be seeing an increase in the surcharge on the electricity bill, and I think by now we would understand that as the oil prices rise and falls, and you know the surcharge moves up and down. So I guess the only way out of this fuel surcharge is geothermal. Can you please give us an update on where geothermal is on Nevis? And as of December 1st, Nivision customers or Digicel Play customers will see an increase in their internet bill, and I'm not certain about the cable if that will be increased as well, but I know most definitely as of the 1st the internet price will be increased. My question is, well, I guess just for knowledge, is there a government entity that okays service providers increasing or price increasing their service, or are they allowed to just increase whenever they want to increase? And then lastly, can you just please give us an update on the hospital? What is the position? Has construction begun again? And that's about it. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Washington. On geothermal, we have just had a very comprehensive report. In fact, I just saw it on my way here. I regret that I didn't have the opportunity to digest it before, but the developers have sent something quite comprehensive. I think that at this stage, all of us know that what we've been waiting on is for production of the energy, and that would require the necessary investment to drill the production wells and to build the plant and to do the tie-in, the interconnectivity between the plant and NEVLEC, so that NEVLEC can transmit the power. That is what has proven most difficult, because we have had the resources raised to deal with the exploration. The exploration is done, everything is nicely packaged, it is just for the production. The developers have had difficulty raising those monies. They have brought in recent months BlackRock Securities, which they say is going to provide some equity financing, and OPIC, which is the Overseas Private Investment Company, corporation, I'm not sure which, but OPIC, which is an arm of the United States government, which is supposed to provide some debt financing. The last that I heard is that OPIC has okayed their side of things to do the financing for the project on the debt side, but I'm not sure what the result of the BlackRock due diligence is going to be. Each of those entities takes between 3 and 6 months to do their due diligence. And so that process has been an ongoing process. We've had visits from both OPIC and BlackRock Securities. I believe they were all here towards the middle of this year. And so we await final word. It may be that the document that I've just received has that word, but I'm not in a position to report to you as yet, because, as I said, I didn't have the benefit of reading it prior to coming to the press conference. But geothermal is still, I think, for Nevis, an aspiration. It is still something that is transformative if we can achieve it, and it is something that I'm hopeful that in certainly the near future we will be able to have geothermal energy for all the benefits that you've described yourself in terms of pricing, the getting away from the fuel surcharge and the fluctuations and the like. It is also important to stabilize our economy, because currently it's difficult for us to plan, because we don't know what oil prices are going to be from month to month. And the rise in oil prices does untold damage to our finances. It does untold damage to our economy and the cost of living. Bus fare, everything goes up. And so that's the difficulty that we have. And so I commit and recommit. We've always been committed to the geothermal journey, and I hope by the next time I come, I'll have a more formal and substantive report for you. Or perhaps by the time we go into the Parliament for the budget debate, I would have had the opportunity to digest what has been just sent. Digicel increasing their prices, the short answer is no. There's been no interaction with the government on that particular matter. Years ago, we had put in place a Public Utilities Commission, largely to deal with electricity and, in fact, to deal with cable. But that commission has largely been dysfunctional. Nothing has happened with that commission for many, many years, I think probably well over a decade, if my memory serves. And so there's currently no entity on Nevis. There is, of course, the NTRC, I think they're called, on St. Kitts, that would deal with the regulation. And I do not know if Digicel would have had their price increases authorized through that entity, but it is a matter that I will check on to determine what it is and what involvement the NTRC would have had with Digicel in relation to internet price increases. In relation to the hospital, that project has resumed. I'm very grateful for that. We had some hiccups. We had also some asbestos that had to be removed, which led to some delays as well, because that, as you know, is a highly specialized. We had to bring people in to remove that asbestos, but all of that is done. And the last report I had from the project manager, Mr. Billy Claxton, is that work has resumed and that the work is proceeding apace. So again, we had a hiccup, as I said earlier. When these things happen, we will come to the public and we will say openly and honestly what is going on. And that hiccup, thankfully, is behind us, and the project has now resumed.
Let me just ask one more question. When it comes to geothermal, you spoke about funding. Has the NIA looked at helping to fund the geothermal project as well?
The problem is the resources. I would love to fund it and own it entirely. If we had the money, we would do it ourselves, to be honest with you, because then we'd only have to hire experts, but it would be something that we do as a project. But the problem is the funding. They're talking about between 50 and 60 million US dollars. Those are between 50 and 60 million US dollars. Those are the numbers that have been discussed. And certainly those numbers are beyond the capacity of the Nevis Island administration. So we have assisted, and we're able to assist normally in terms of concessions, in terms of tax exemptions and the like. But in terms of actual money to make the project happen, it is really beyond our capacity. And that is why we have partnered with a foreign developer and hopeful that they can bring the financing to the table. The deal that we worked with them, it was their responsibility to bring the financing to the table. And that is why they're working with their various people, including BlackRock Securities and OPIC.
Good morning, everyone. Good morning, Premier Brantley.
Good morning.
Jarvis Brown Vaughan Radio. We have just a few questions for you, sir. Could we have an update into the investigation into the robbery of Mr. John Yarwood? The second question is that, are you in a position to say when the permanent facility for the IWPS school will be built? And the third question is with regards to the young ladies that suffered in the explosion at the MUA. Could you confirm if one of them passed away last evening? And the final question is, in light of the double salary payouts to civil servants, are you in a position to provide some sort of statistics regarding how much has been paid out thus far? Those three questions, sir.
Starting where you left off about double salary and the statistics, I wouldn't know offhand what those numbers are. I suppose you take our usual payroll and you double it. Mr. Doe, can you assist offhand? Any figure would be a rough figure, because certainly that would be our normal payroll. So the double salary would amount to, okay. Yeah, so we're told that roughly 5 million is our normal monthly commitment in terms of salaries and various emoluments. So on a double salary, we would double that. So pensioners. So pretty much about $10 million for double salary. Give or take. As I said, I'm just using round numbers because I don't have an actual figure in front of me. MUA, in relation to the student, I confess that I've had some chatter that I have seen about a student, that one of the students has passed. I did not wish to comment on it because I do not have any confirmation. I did put a call into the owner of the university, but that call has not yet been responded to. So at this point, I don't know what the reality is, but I have seen that there is some talk that this is the case. I didn't want to comment officially until I had confirmation from the university, so I can't say too much more on that. The permanent facility for IWPS, I'm not in a position to give a date to you, but I can say to the good people of Brown Hill and the surrounding areas is that we are working at this, we're looking at it. It is clearly going to be a significant undertaking to build a new home for Ivor Walters Primary, and so we are hopeful that with the temporary relief that we've provided, it will at least take some of the pressure off the school and the school infrastructure, particularly bathroom facilities. It sounds simple, but with more and more students and no expansion in the bathroom facilities, that in and of itself has led to an unsanitary and unhealthy situation at the school. So we have tried to provide some temporary relief, and I will come when I have more to talk about the permanent relief that we hope to provide to them in short order. But they're firmly on our radar in relation to that school. The matter with Mr. Yarwood, as you know, is an active police investigation. I would want to extend my profound sympathy to Mr. Yarwood, to the members of his family. Mr. Yarwood has been in direct contact with various members of the cabinet. In fact, our legal advisor would have visited him in the hospital in Trinidad and taken and conveyed our concerns. I believe he has spoken via telephone with Minister Evelyn and Minister Brand, and he has spoken via WhatsApp communication with me, and he indicates that he is in good spirit and that he's recovering nicely. I continue, of course, to ask our people to behave in a responsible way, and that there's no room in our community for crime and criminality. And I continue to encourage particularly our young people to do the right thing. The numbers from Social Security, for example, are encouraging. They tell us that employment is on the rise in the island of Nevis. It means that there's work to do. And I would encourage people to choose doing honest work over seeking to rob people of their hard-earned belongings. And so I extend my own sympathy to Mr. Yarwood and his family and wish him a speedy recovery. Insofar as the investigation is concerned, my understanding is that the police have either already or are soon to make some charges, arrest and charge, and that they are confident that they have been able to identify the individuals involved with this particular crime. And it will be then for the process to take its course. And so that's as much as I can say at this point.
Good morning once again, Mr. Premier.
Sure.
Just quickly going back to the MUA situation, have you or the cabinet spoken directly to the university since the incident occurred? Because we've all, from the media's perspective, have not gotten a statement or anything from the university since the incident occurred.
Well, in fairness, the incident did not occur at the university. The incident, everybody is saying the MUA, but the incident occurred at a private facility that the students were renting. So it is perhaps for that reason that the MUA has not issued a statement. It did not happen on campus. It did not happen on the premises of the MUA. So, in a way, it is saying that, if a civil servant were to be damaged at their home or at a place that they're renting, does the government have a responsibility to make a statement? So MUA might not have made a statement because of that. I have, however, been in touch with the MUA, and we were in close contact with them on the night in question. I was, in fact, at the hospital on the night in question, and would have not been able to speak to the students, but certainly would have been at the hospital at the time and spoken to the dean at the MUA. We've also been in touch with the owners, and so we're very well aware of the steps that were taken to stabilize the students and then to fly them to the United States for specialized care. But beyond that, I'm not so sure what statement anyone can make. I have made a statement because of the significance of this institution to the island. But let us not forget that this incident was not an MUA property. It occurred off property at a privately owned rental apartment unit.
Okay. Can you just tell us what's the state of the Nevis financial services sector? Is it facing any challenges, or the statistics, is it up or down? Additionally, we have not heard anything from the Marijuana Commission since, I guess, they've probably gone out of business. But have you guys received any report from that commission with regards to how the people's views since they've been doing their meetings? Also, there was the CCJ recently ruled with regards to the cross-dressing case coming out of Guyana. What implications that would have for a country like St. Kitts and Nevis in terms of changing the constitution to fit, how should I say it, fit these people and their views into the country? And my final question, has the government, or is the government in a position to say how many persons would have qualified under the $500 per month initiative from Nevis?
Okay, you've asked me quite a few questions. Let me try to respond as easy as I can, as quickly as I can. Marijuana Commission, I don't know if they've gone out of business, as you say, but I think that they had a mandate to do their interactions, of course, their consultations, and then to report. I'm not aware that that report has come yet. So I think that we're probably at that stage now where they should be reporting on their findings to the federal cabinet. So rather than them going out of business, I think they're just continuing their business, but in a less public way now, because they're collating and putting together the necessary information so that they can report. As the government determined the number of people for the $500 relief, I have up to this morning, I believe it was, spoken to Minister Evelyn about the matter. They are now in the verification stage. I'm told that the process, let us remember, was that people gave their data, that data was collected, and now what happens is that we have to verify that data. Because whilst we expected everybody to be honest and to give accurate data, we know that some people would not. So we have to verify, because we have to ensure that those who benefit are the ones who are intended to benefit. That is households where the income for the entire household is below $3,000 a month. Those are the ones who are to benefit. And I'm told that some of the people, even on the information they gave, didn't qualify. So it looked like some people came and, some of our people try a thing, as we say, colloquially. So we have to weed out those, because this is intended to help people who are genuinely in need of the help. So the verification process is still ongoing. I expect that that will come to a close, and then I'll be in a position to give you actual numbers. The financial services sector, we are always on the siege. That's the reality. The OECD, the EU, various agencies. We have a small team that has been working. The legal advisors here, the PS finances here, they're all part of that team that has been working on promoting. I have asked of Nevis that we grow the sector by 50% in this term, in this 5 years. I think we can achieve it with some innovation. We also, of course, have a deadline of December to deal with certain concerns of the EU. Those concerns are really more geared to St. Kitts and the exempt companies that St. Kitts has. We have a separate deadline of December 2019 to make some changes in Nevis in relation to our IBCs and LLCs. And we will be working very closely to ensure that we meet those deadlines, we introduce the changes so that we do not run afoul of the EU or the OECD, as the case may be. But the short answer is that we're always on the siege, and no sooner do we meet one set of standards and criteria that they change them. And that is one of the complaints we've had, that there's an ever-changing goalpost. Somebody mentioned CBI earlier, for example. I think it was you who mentioned CBI. CBI was never on the radar of the OECD or the EU or anybody else. All of a sudden now, they're saying that they want to investigate as to whether that can possibly be connected to tax and tax-related matters. And so they keep expanding their scope and they keep changing the rules. So no sooner have we adjusted our legislation to deal with whatever the new realities are, they change the rules again. So we have to constantly be nimble so that we are not ostracized by the international community. Yesterday, for example, we had some very good consultations with Ernst & Young, and Ernst & Young have been hired by the federal government to do a review and to advise as to how we can meet these challenges. We've also asked KPMG, I believe, to review and advise Nevis as to how we can reorganize our sector to get more out of it and to make it more fit for purpose. We have recently gone into the House and we have passed amendments to the Nevis Investment Promotion Agency legislation, again to give that agency greater fillip in dealing with the promotion of the financial services sector. So I anticipate that the revenues that have been pretty flat over the last 5 or so years, we have generally vacillated between about maybe 11.5 to about 14.5, $15 million, and stayed in that range for the last many years. I think that that is something that we need to look at now to see how we can grow it, how we can get it to 17 and 18 and $20 million. It's a sector that is well known. It has existed since 1984, and so it's something that I think we can build on. But we will require the work, and we will require to remain agile, and we have to remain alert as to the constant changes that the international community make and continue to make. Cross-dressing case in Guyana, and you mentioned whether we'll have to amend our constitution. I've looked at our constitution from time to time. I don't see anything in it about cross-dressing or cross-dressers. And while I anticipate you're asking a wider question, I think that in the specific context of cross-dressing, I don't know that the St. Kitts and Nevis has to make any changes to its laws. If you are like me and you're going to ban for Juve, I'm sure you see a lot of cross-dressing. So I wouldn't put too much on that. I think that the people of Guyana will have to deal with the outcome of that particular case and the CCJ's ruling in that regard.
Okay, just to follow up on that point, it was said that certain sections of the Constitution which prohibits men wearing female garments and
that is not in the Constitution.
Women feeling garments.
But that's the point I'm making. That is not in our Constitution.
Okay, but just from a wider perspective.
Yes.
And this also goes to the laws that prohibits the term the burglary, basically, which it was asked of the Prime Minister and he hasn't basically addressed that. But in terms of when the CCJ makes a ruling that says unconstitutional and unfair, which prohibits same-sex attire and all this, how does that affect St. Kitts and Nevis in terms of its constitution when a ruling like that is made and you have the one section of the law that prohibits that?
But this is my point. This is my point. You're trying to extrapolate from a decision in Guyana and asking us what does it do. St. Kitts and Nevis doesn't have that law, so it doesn't affect us. I'm not aware that there's any law in St. Kitts and Nevis, and certainly I know it is not in the Constitution dealing with cross-dressing. Even the law that you talk about in relation to buggery, as it's referred to, is not in the Constitution. That's a matter of ordinary legislation. So one ought not to simply import that something is happening in Guyana and it has some more ramifications for St. Kitts and Nevis, because if they've struck down a law in Guyana that we never had, then there's no impact here. We note it, and the people of Guyana will have to deal with that, and the legislators in Guyana will have to deal with that. So if you want to ask a different question, then you have to ask that different question, but certainly not the one that you're asking. It really doesn't have anything to do with us. Any other questions, members of the media? Yes?
One last question, Brilliant
Sure.
Brantley. Could you comment on the new party's formation?
Which new party?
Well, it will be here this evening on Let's Talk program. So could you?
So they're announcing this evening on Let's Talk?
Yes.
Well, you expect me to comment now, and I haven't heard them yet. I'll have to hear what these individuals have to say on Let's Talk this evening. So the next press conference, I'll be able to say. But certainly, I welcome anyone into the political process. We are a democracy. It gets It gets a little messy at times, we understand that, but that's the nature of democracy. I mean, even in great democracies such as the United States, it gets messy. We've just seen the midterm elections, and we've seen the races in Florida, for example, those in places like Georgia, that got really messy in terms of the count and the recount and the like. So it is the nature of democracy, and democracy requires participation. So I welcome people into the process. I think more people should get involved in politics, not fewer. A lot of people think politics is some terrible thing. It is not. It is through politics that I'm standing here and being able to shape policy for the island of Nevis. Good, bad, or indifferent, politicians impact our lives. And so I encourage members to get involved. And so if they're young people or not so young people who have decided to put themselves into a political party, I welcome them. And I hope that they can bring something to the debate. At the end of the day, I'm pretty certain where I am. And I'm pretty certain where my team is. And I'm pretty certain where we will be tomorrow and the day after. But those who want to come, as the Calypsonians say, let them come if they want to come. So that is as much as I could say in relation to that. Any other questions for me? Okay, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much. Thank you all the members of the media for being here. Thank you. I look forward. I may not have, let me just announce, a press conference next month because, of course, it's a short month in the sense of it being Christmas. And so in the absence of that, I wish the members of the press who have been here with me for the last 12 months, I want to wish you all a very Merry Christmas and a wonderful New Year when it comes. And I look forward to seeing you back in the New Year when we can continue this very important dialogue. So thank you all for your participation, and I wish you all the very best. Thank you.
To scale the utmost heights and catch a gleam of glory bright, but still I'll pray.